Hey, ho, ah. Hey gang, so it's Jake here. Today I just thought I would show you my process for watercoloring. So I drew this sword on watercolor paper and I'm just gonna paint it and kind of explain what I'm doing as I go along. By no means am I an expert. Far from it actually. I guess I should explain my setup first. So I have 2 cups of water. 1 cup of water is going to get really dirty. The second cup of water stays a lot cleaner. You swish your brush once and then you swish it again to keep it completely clean. Just regular paints from Hobby Lobby, pad of paper, and then a paper towel to dispel paint and to dry off my brush. So usually what I start with is getting a little bit of water on the brush and you're going to wet the paper. This is going to help that watercolor paint spread easier, so you're not working on dry paper. And with watercolor, you just slowly add up values. So I think with this, I'm going to start with a purple. Something really light. I really like working with fun colors. A lot of like bright, happy colors. You know, something different. When most people think of swords, they think of like the gray steels or the golds or iron. Why not make a purple sword? Now another thing to know with watercolor, it's always going to be, the color is going to be most dense or most saturated where you first put your brush down. And I want to have a little bit of a lighter color on top to make the sword seem a little bit lighter on top and more heavy at the bottom. So if you start from the bottom there, see how, maybe it's hard to see on camera, but it's a little bit darker on the bottom and then lighter up top here. And I want to keep that trend going. So all we're going to do is wet our brush again. And I'm going to add a little bit darker purple. And same thing. Watercolor is all about patience. You're just going to slowly add color. You don't want to go too fast. Every brush stroke counts when you're painting. Next then, I'm going to work on this metal part. Now, here's where I have to decide if I want to stick with like a gold color that kind of complements the purple, or do I want to stick with like a whole cold, oops, there I just got a bunch of water there, that's okay. Or do I want to go more with like a cold kind of color palette? I think I'm going to do like a light green. Can you guys see what I'm doing with my, yeah, you can kind of see. Enough to see that what's going on. I don't know what I'm talking about. So again, wet that area. You don't want to work with a dry canvas here. You can. There is like dry brush techniques. But if you want to get like the smooth color transitions and paint transitions, it's better to wet that canvas first. Okay, so for this, rather than jumping right to a green, that green's going to be really bold, I'm going to actually throw down a layer of yellow first. Because again, remember, with watercolor, it's all about layers. It's just going one step at a time. What a lot of people, when they first start watercoloring, they don't understand like how to get those bright, vibrant colors. But it's usually because they only do one pass. They only paint like one layer on, and as you can see, it's pretty pastel and light. So this is known as our base layer, or our flat layer. We're not worrying about form or shadow or dimension. We're just getting a first layer of paint on. And then we're gonna let that dry. Now for the handle. I think I'm gonna keep that same gold color. And I might, not fully sure what to do with the straps yet. I might go in with a smaller brush at the end and throw on color that way. But I think to start, I'm gonna get that yellow color in there. Now, I decided to use an angled flat brush here because the tip, if you use like the edge of the brush, it allows you to get more into those detailed spots. But then, obviously, if you turn it flat, you're going to cover more area. This isn't a big painting by any means, so I didn't need anything crazy. But I didn't want to use a small brush either, because that's not going to allow me to blend my colors as well. Now that we have our base layer on, this is where we're going to go back and start adding more color. So I'm going to work on the blade right here since I've kind of let it dry. It's still a little wet, but more dry than when we started. Now, I'm going to start working in maybe some dark purples and dark blues at the bottom. And we're just going to wet the watercolor cake here. Now see how saturated this is here? If I come over here in the brush, see how much paint that's going to throw down? That's too much paint. And at this stage now our page is already wet, so we're not going to need to go back over there. And it's important then that your brush isn't too wet. So what I usually do is I wet the brush here, kind of dab it off on the side, maybe get it off on the paper towel a little bit. Then come in with our blue. Now see, that's a very saturated little color, so here you can wet your brush again. And now you're going to wet it, and then come into your clean one to make sure it's clean. And using just the water, you can saturate that, desaturate that color into the purple. See how it just gets that nice blend right there? It's these gradients, these blendings of different colors that are going to help your drawing just pop. And here again, go in with a little bit more water. And just use that gradient here. See how nice that is? That color transition? It's just pretty. Now I do want to keep that same purple color. I don't want it to lose the purple color. So the thing I'm going to do is go back with this purple that I started with. Make sure I don't have too much. Unload the brush. And I want to come in with just a bit of purple too. And I'm not even going to brush it out. I like that kind of bleeding effect. And let's go into our yellow now. Or what's going to be green here in a second. Okay, so I'm going to go with this lime green. I want it to be a bright green, enough to, I want it to contrast with that purple sword. Same thing, we just unload a little bit so we're not working with too dense of colors. And we're going to throw a layer of green over the top. The reason I threw down the yellow to begin is because that base layer of yellow helps make the green stand out. If I were to just have started with that green, it would have just been really green. And I don't want just one solid, like really green color. Again, see that gradient? Like that just looks nice. You know, I don't have to go in and fill every spot here with that green because I already had that yellow layer down. One thing I am noticing here is right now as I'm painting is my brush pen on this pad of paper bleeds a little. I use this brush pen on my sketchbook and it doesn't bleed at all. But I'm noticing now when I take it into this watercolor paper, the paper doesn't hold that green, or I'm sorry, that brush pen. So that's something I'm gonna have to pay attention to from here on out, or at least when I start using it more, I might not be able to use the brush pen. I might have to use like I don't know, like I know Copics. They make markers that don't bleed with water and alcohol, so that might be something I have to look into. I have one. I just didn't use it for this because I like the look of the brush pen, but I actually don't want it to bleed. Just little touches of green, just being careful with my edges. I don't want to get sloppy. Be picky with this stuff. So here I had too much water. The second I put my brush down, a whole pool came out. That's just too much water. It's definitely something you just have to kind of feel for. The more and more you do it, the more and more you're going to understand how to do it, but it takes a bit. You have to just get out there and try it. Find out what works, find what you like, what you don't like. Be picky. Okay. So here, let's rinse our brush off. Now, I am going to pause my video for a second because I want to let this dry, because what I'm going to start doing now is getting into my detail. If I were to go in and start painting my edges to give this more form and depth, right now, it's going to bleed. I'm going to have my paint run into my center here, out to my edges. Same thing with here. Like I want to make this stand out from here. And if I were to do that right now, it's going to bleed all over because my page is still wet. So this is where that patience comes in. I'm going to have to let this sit and dry for a bit. I could hair dry it if I wanted, just to make it faster. But I don't know. It's morning and I'm going to drink a cup of coffee and probably read my Bible for a little bit and then come back. So with the power of editing, we're going to be right back here, like now. Okay, welcome back. I guess you really didn't go anywhere because of the power of editing. Now that my page is dried, the paint has dried, now I get to go in and get some of these shadows and these values. Now with these, since I already have a layer and I don't want this to bleed anywhere, I'm not going to go in with water and throw down a layer of water. I'm just going to go in with my darker paints. So taking a little bit of water, I'm going to go kind of this dark blue-green. I don't want to have a lot of water. See here, hopefully you can see this. See how much water is sitting at the end of my brush? I don't know if it's focused right. How the brush is kind of fat. There's all that water in there. That's what you don't want. You want to unload your brush. See the difference there? That's what we're looking for. And I'm taking just a little bit of this dark green and I'm going to go in and we're going to add a shadow layer. And now here, I'm okay with this strong green color, because that's what is going to really make that green layer that we did earlier pop. Contrast is good in painting, just in art in general. If everything's a mid-tone, if you work, if everything is super light colors, it's boring. Okay, maybe it's not boring. I mean, no, it kind of is boring. Even those people that work with like just pastel colors, if you look, you notice they still have a lot of variety in their color. They're still getting really good contrast. Contrast is key. See how fat my brush is? It's too much water again. So you just want to unload a little bit, pick up that little bit of paint again, and then go back in. And that's to keep from bleeding out. If you have too much water and you put it down the paper, that water is going to dispense all over your painting. We don't want that. So here that green is just a little too much for my liking. So I'm just going to go back in with a clean brush without any paint on it and pick some of that up and actually use it up top here. And I still, doing this, I still kind of have my lighter colors up top. Even though it's the same green, see how much darker it is right here compared to right here? It gives it just a little bit of lightness. If you think of like a sword, you're going to hold it at the base, and it's going to be heaviest right here. I mean, again, too, like, it's a bigger object. You can use your colors to accentuate that even more. It's a heavier base at the bottom, so your colors are heavier, more saturated, which gives it a visual weight to your eye and to your mind. Now, I want this right here to be darker too, because this is recessed in the metal. So to do that, to start, I'm actually going to throw down another layer of this green. Of the green color that we worked with earlier. Not too much paint. Not too much water. Just enough here. That actually might be a little bit... No, I have a bigger space. It'll be okay. Yeah, that's okay. So this is going to saturate that color more. There we go. And we're just going to keep on going up here into this metal. Now here you notice I've gotten even more picky. I'm being very careful with my brush strokes. I don't want to bleed at this point. This is where, these aren't base coats anymore. This isn't our first pass. This is actually picky stuff. I want to stay in my lines. It is watercolor, so it looks nice when it kind of like bleeds a little bit, but that doesn't give you like free reign to just go crazy. So what I'm doing here, I guess I never really explained this. What I'm doing with these cakes is I'm taking a loaded brush, completely loaded, and I'm getting the cake wet right on top. So this gives me a layer of paint. Then what I go is I go back into my water, unload, and I unload the water because I don't want it to bleed everywhere, like I said earlier. And then I go back in and I pick up that wet paint. And then I'm ready to bring it onto my page. Oh, I'm starting to get the coffee shakes. This morning was one of those mornings where I didn't need coffee, but I had it anyway. Because seriously, coffee is absolutely delicious. And now I'm getting the coffee shakes, which is not ideal for painting. Okay, now, let's see. Now, this edge right here is going to be more of a highlight, so I'm not going to paint in any color there. What I might actually do with this, you know what? I'm going to leave it for now. I might go in with like a colored pencil or a white Jelly Roll pen to add some white and highlights in there, because I don't think I want to. I don't want to throw paint in there. If I throw in more paint, it's just going to start to look muddy. That's too much paint. Wasn't paying attention. Little bits. That's still too much. This is recessed a little bit too, so it's going to be darker. This is just that base green again. Just to throw in. We're throwing shade. Oh my goodness. See how much more that pops? See how much deeper that is? How much more color we have now? I am actually, not actually, next is the blade. Throwing more color again. We're gonna go with a deep purple here. Wet our cake. I love that word to describe paint. Paint is just, that I was about to say something really stupid. Holy moly. Paint is just colorful. Yeah, Jake, you're right. Good job. Paint cake. Wow, it's early. Maybe I should have had a second cup of coffee. Maybe I was wrong. I don't know. Maybe I should just stop. Should I just paint, not use words anymore? I was gonna say so many art supplies, especially like paint. You just want to eat it? Am I alone in that? I'm probably alone in that. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I realize how ridiculous it sounds. Don't listen to me. I said at the beginning of this video that I have no idea what I'm doing. Did I say that? I don't know what I'm doing. I do know what I'm doing. But I'm not a professional. I'm just a crazy man with a paintbrush. Obviously, because I just told you that I want to eat paint. I don't want to eat paint. Please don't worry about me. I do not want to eat paint. I just think they're really colorful. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah! Now these are called paint cakes. That's just funny to me. Wow, that was a complete derail. I am so sorry you just had to listen to that. Just added a little bit of shadow again there. Let's go in and add some shadow here too. That's a round handle, so the light's gonna hit it and create a shadow on the side. So I've kind of decided like my light source here is this way, like coming down this way. Well, kind of, but I guess if I have this light, I don't really know. I told you I'm not a professional. I'm still learning. I will always be learning. And I guess I just decided my shadow's gonna be right here. And there's a pretty good chance that my shadow shouldn't be right here, because I actually didn't like really establish a light source, which is bad. Don't do that. Pick a light source. The light source helps your eye, helps the viewer's eye understand, like, okay, yep, that's supposed to be in shadow because I can tell that everything else is in shadow in the right spot. That stuff matters. Be picky. Yes, I am happy with that. I am gonna come back with this light yellow. Just decided, just made this decision. Oh, I just dirtied my clean water. That's okay, it wasn't that much. Okay, we're gonna go with this light yellow, and we're just gonna add just a little touch of it on my edges here. It's all about visual interest, people. Layer those colors, make it fun, make it pop. A little bit of bright yellow there is just gonna add to that. Not much, don't overdo it, otherwise then we're gonna have a yellow sword. If that's what you're going for, then hey, but you should have done that right away, not green. This is just to make it a little bit more interesting, rather than just a green sword. Metal isn't perfect. Metal has different colors in it when you forge it. And obviously when the wood elves made this sword, they used other materials. Now, I haven't spoken to any wood elves recently, so I'm not quite sure what the normal craft of the trade is these days. Got a little too yellow in this spot. So I'm going to take just a wet brush, pick some of that yellow back up so it's not quite so heavy. Still want green to be the main color, so yeah, that's better. Okay. Let's go, we're gonna go back in just a hint of this green here. I'm gonna add just one more little bit while my paint is still wet of shading, so it's not quite so flat. Just a little bit. I just don't want it to be perfect. I know that sounds like a weird thing to say, but when you're painting, you don't want things to be perfect. If it's perfect, then just go look at a photo. Let your brush strokes make the decisions for you. You know, yes, I was picky on like making sure I wasn't bleeding things out. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like throw in little spots of color. Let it transition a little bit. You know, don't like perfectly fill everything 100%. That's not what I meant. You want to fill your paints in so you're painting in so it's complete, but I think like what I'm talking about, like this hard line, like I just painted this hard line in here, which is fine, you can do that, but it's gonna be more interesting if you go back in with another little color and bleed it more, give it some contrast. You know, maybe throw in a little bit of this yellow and work that in a little bit. Like that's just a little bit more interesting now. One thing you do have to be careful of, and this is something you're going to just kind of learn as you go, don't overwork things. either. Like, this is probably good. I probably shouldn't add any more color in. I'm just going to let it sit. And this is probably a good time, too, to take a break. Take a step back. Get up and grab a bag of chips. Come back in and look at it with fresh eyes to see what you need to add or what you need to change. But folks, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, I lied. No, I am happy with it. I do want to add just one more layer of color. Right here. One more layer of contrast. I want to deepen that color. That way when I go in with my, I haven't decided yet how I want to do this, with that white something or other to make this more, you know, this is going to pop out even more to this because of how dark this is going to get and how light that's going to stay. Bleed this a little bit. Now I'm going to keep this a hard edge because I'm kind of treating it like a shadow. Like this is a hard edge right here, which is going to create a hard shadow right here. So I want to keep that difference. I don't want to blend it in together. Now that's my choice. I could if I wanted more of a soft light, but in this case I don't. That's my artistic choice. Okay. We'll go back in with just one more dash of dark color. And I think that's going to do it. Okay, how about that? What I'll probably do at the end here is I am going to go in and I might just take like a black ink and put in my laces. It's going to really help add some weight and contrast at the bottom. But I don't think I'm going to record that. I think I'm going to stop here, and what I'll do is I'll just post an image on the screen of my final result after I take a photo of it when it's all done. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate everything. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see more of these and if this was helpful. I love getting the feedback. Have a wonderful day. That's what I have. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Okay, goodbye now. I don't know what else to say. So I'm just going to stop it right here.